The rope bit into Clara Dennison's ankles with a cruelty that transcended physical pain. Suspended upside down from the crude wooden frame in Whiskey Ben's town square, she felt every heartbeat pound behind her eyes until the world pulsed red and terrible. Her dark hair, normally pinned with such care, hung loose toward the dusty ground. The torn fabric of her dress exposed not just her rope-burned ankles, but her swollen belly. 6 months pregnant, a widow for 8 months, since the railroad accident that crushed her husband Thomas beneath a derailed freight car. This was designed humiliation, a spectacle to break their spirits before the real horror began. To her left hung Hattie Moss, 24, freckled, a farmhand's wife. Her face had gone purple, tears streaming upward into her blonde hair. To her right, Paloma Reyes whispered prayers in Spanish, her bronze hands clenched in fists. All three had answered letters from the Hearth and Home Agency promising respectable work. All three had discovered the trap too late. The crowd pressed close, miners, saloon girls, merchants in vests who looked away when Clara's desperate eyes found theirs. The late August sun beat down merciless. Clara could hear the creak of rope with each slight movement, the buzz of flies, the jingle of harness brass. What am I bid for these 3 fine specimens?" Copper Jim Malloy's voice carried across the square. Tall and copper-bearded, he gripped a leather-bound ledger covered in wax seals. "Legitimate contracts, folks. These women owe considerable sums to Mr. Fitzgerald Cobb, passage from Kansas City room and board medical care. The territorial debt laws permit recovery through service transfer or auction." It was a sham reading of territorial statutes, a practice already unlawful under federal anti-peonage law, and would later be charged as conspiracy to traffic in persons. Beside the platform stood Sheriff Roland Pike, his scarred face, impassive hand resting on his Colt. Deputy Sam Garrett leaned against the post, picking his teeth, watching with cold amusement. 200 for the lot. 300. Copper Jim warmed to his performance. Strong workers and too near their time built-in labor for years. Clara's vision swam. She thought of Thomas, of their last morning together. She thought of the telegram announcing his death. She was suffering now, and no one was coming to help. Then she heard it, hoofbeats rapid and purposeful. The crowd shifted. A horse burst through a chestnut, gelding its rider, sitting with easy confidence. The man was Lakota, late 20s, with high cheekbones and long black hair tied back. He wore practical leather clothing, everything weathered to earth tones. A Winchester rifle rested in his saddle scabbard. A knife hung at his belt, but it was his eyes that struck Clara, most dark brown, almost black, holding no fear whatsoever. He reined to a halt before the platform. When he spoke, his voice was clear and firm. "Stop this. I will buy them." Every hand on every weapon shifted. The air compressed, waiting. Copper Jim's smile faltered, then reformed sharper. "Well now, that is very interesting indeed." Clara felt consciousness slipping, but somewhere deep a spark of hope flickered. Someone had come. The man was named Ake, simply Ake, though his mother had given him a longer name meaning both sides in Lakota. The scar along his ribs was 3 winters old from when soldiers came hunting ghost dancers. He had survived. His sister Wikampi Star had not. She had disappeared in that chaos, and for 2 years, Ake had searched until he found her body in a Colorado ravine. The marks on her wrists, her pregnant state in death, told stories of trafficking and captivity. He had sworn on her grave to stop this from happening to others. That oath led him here, following the trail of the Hearth and Home Agency, one tentacle of a network luring women with false promises, selling them and their children to buyers who twisted law to serve profit. Fitzgerald Cobb was the spider, a rancher with 12,000 acres who needed heirs to maintain territorial land grants. Sheriff Pike was Cobb's creature. Copper Jim, the visible operator, Ake's plan was simple: use their corrupt system against them by making a legitimate bid, get the women to safety, then move them north to Ash River, where Circuit Judge Marcus Avery would hold court in 4 days. 80 miles through hostile territory. The odds were poor. He had faced worse. "Your name, stranger?" Copper Jim asked. "Ike." "Just Ake well, mister. Just Ake. These contracts represent $900. You have that amount?" Ake reached into his saddlebag slowly. He withdrew a leather pouch and tossed it onto the platform with a solid thunk. "Count it." Deputy Sam dumped the contents: silver dollars, gold, double eagles, Denver assay certificates. His eyebrows rose. "It is here, boss." The money was real. 2 years of dangerous work. Everything Ake owned, besides his horse rifle and knife. But he would spend it without hesitation to keep his promise. Copper Jim's expression shifted through calculations. He glanced at Pike, who nodded slightly. "Well then, we have a buyer. Let us cut these ladies down and complete the transaction properly." 2 men climbed the platform to untie the ropes. Hattie and Paloma were lowered first, collapsing and gasping. Then came Clara. The rope loosened and she began to fall. Strong hands caught her before she hit the platform. A voice spoke near her ear, steady and warm. "I have got you. Breathe slow. You are safe now." Clara's vision cleared to reveal the face above hers, angular and serious, with surprising gentleness in dark eyes. A scar along his jawline. He held her as if she weighed nothing. For a moment, outside time, they simply looked at each other. Some wordless understanding passed between them. "I see you. You are not alone." "Thank you," she whispered. His hands tightened slightly, not possessive, but grounding. "Can you stand?" "I do not know." "Then I will help you." He supported her weight as he set her upright, staying close as her legs threatened to buckle. "Easy. Your body needs to remember." Dr. Francis Hale pushed through with his medical bag and cane. Behind him came Helen Whitlow, the school teacher, her sharp eyes taking in everything. "Let me see them," Hale said, kneeling to check pulses. "Blast it, Jim, you could have killed them." "They are merchandise, Doc. They are human beings carrying children." Hale's voice was sharp with fury. Helen moved among them with water and bandages. She met Ake's eyes and nodded toward the saloon shed's solid walls, a door that could be barred. Sheriff Pike stepped forward. "This transaction is not complete. Paperwork must be signed. These women remain in custody until all formalities are observed." Ake turned to face him. "I paid your price. They are my responsibility now." "That is not how it works, Savage." Sam's hand drifted toward his Colt. "You will not leave alive." Ake's voice remained calm. "Shoot me now, and you destroy your legitimacy. A Lakota man paying $900 makes this look legal. A dead Lakota man creates federal questions you cannot afford. So you will let me complete this transaction because that serves you best." Pike's jaw tightened. Finally, he raised a hand to stop Sam. "Move them to the shed. We complete paperwork there. Then, Mr. Ake, we discuss travel arrangements." It was a trap. Ake knew it. Sign papers be ambushed on the trail, but it bought time. As they moved toward the shed, Helen slipped beside Ake. Something small transferred from her palm to his. He pocketed it without looking. Inside the shed, smelling of hay whiskey and rotting potatoes, Clara sank onto a crate. Hale knelt with his salve. "You are lucky nothing broke." Ake stood near the door, divided between watching outside and listening. Clara looked up at him. "Why did you do that? Why risk yourself for strangers?" "Because what was happening was wrong. And because I failed to save someone once. I will not fail again." The weight of grief in those words was palpable. Clara wanted to understand this man who had appeared like legend and was possibly going to die trying to help them. Hale cleared his throat. "We need a plan. Pike will not let you walk out. I know. Ake withdrew the paper Helen had passed him. His expression darkened as he read. What is it? Clara asked. Helen sent a telegram last night to Judge Avery. Detailed everything: fake contracts, disappearances, suspicious deaths. Asked for federal marshals. Hope flared. So help is coming? Maybe. If it went through. If anyone acted. If they reach us in time. He folded the paper. We cannot wait. We leave tonight. 80 miles to Ash River. Hattie spoke thinly. Why are you helping us? Ake's expression became raw. I had a sister. We can't be. She was 16 when soldiers raided our camp 3 years ago. She disappeared. I searched for 2 years before finding her body near a mining camp. She had been sold used, worked until she died trying to escape. She was pregnant. His hands clenched. I do this because I could not save her. Saving you is the only way I know to balance those scales. Heavy silence. Clara felt the depth of his vow. I am sorry, she said softly. Save your sorry for when we survive. He turned to Hale. Can they travel tonight? They will have to. With rest, yes. But Paloma looks ready to deliver any day. Then we move fast and hope we reach Ash River before Cobb's men catch us or the babies decide to come. He looked at each woman. This will be hard. But trust me and do exactly as I say. Can you do that? Clara met his fierce eyes. Yes, we trust you. Good. He turned to Helen. Can you steal pages from Copper Jim's ledger, physical evidence? Helen's lips quirked. I taught in mining camps. I learned to pick locks. His office lock is barely a puzzle. But I will need to go tonight after dark when the saloon is busy. Her expression turned thoughtful. I already sent the telegram last night. Late after my teaching duties. The office was nearly empty. Was anyone there when you sent it? Ake asked, his tactical mind working. Helen paused as if recalling the memory. Bertha Pike was there, the sheriff's wife. She operates the telegraph on weekends and some evenings when the regular operator is indisposed. Her voice held delicate distaste, clearly meaning drunk. She looked terrified, actually. Her hands were shaking when she took my message form. She kept glancing toward the street, toward the sheriff's office, as if afraid someone would see her helping me. Did she send it? Ake pressed. Yes, but... Helen's brow furrowed. Something was odd about it. She read my message then. When she began tapping out the Morse, I noticed she was adding words. Her rhythm was strange. She would tap the message as I wrote it, but then add these little bursts of additional tapping. Short words, maybe 3 or 4 letters. I asked her about it, whether there was a problem, and she went white as chalk. Said she was just adding routing codes, standard procedure. Helen shook her head. But I learned basic Morse when I was younger, before I became a teacher. Those were not routing codes. They were actual words. But I could not make out what they meant, and frankly, I was too worried about getting the message sent at all to question it further. Ake exchanged a glance with Clara, something unspoken passing between them. Bertha Pike added words to your telegram. Yes. I thought perhaps she was sabotaging it, adding nonsense to make it seem like the ravings of someone unreliable. But she looked so frightened, not malicious. It has puzzled me ever since. Helen straightened. But regardless, the core message went through. At least Bertha assured me it did. Whether anyone will act on it is another question entirely. We cannot wait to find out, Ake said firmly. I can create distraction, Hale offered. Mention needing medical supplies, requiring escort. Now that still leaves guards, and we need horses, wagon supplies, Ake pointed out. Leave that to me. Henry Pike stood in the doorway, pale but determined. He stepped inside quickly. I have horses, a wagon. I have been a coward for 3 years, telling myself it was not my business. My wife died in childbirth 2 years ago. I will not watch more women destroyed. Ake studied him carefully. If you help, your brother will know. Cobb will call your debts. You lose everything. Then I lose it. Some things matter more. Henry's jaw set. I will bring horses and wagon to Dragonfly Creek, 2 miles north Cottonwood Grove. Midnight. Why trust you? Clara asked. You are the sheriff's brother. You should not trust me. But I am offering and you are desperate. So here we are. The brutal honesty carried weight. Ake nodded. Midnight. If you betray us, everyone knows you helped set it up. If I betray you, I deserve worse. Henry moved to leave, paused. There is something else. I saw Roland's papers this morning. Letters from Cobb, details about the operation buyers back east. I can get them. Evidence better than a ledger. Without getting caught, I can try. Then try. After Henry left, they settled into waiting. Clara watched Ake standing near the door in patient stillness. She could not rest despite exhaustion. You should rest, Ake said quietly. I cannot, too much fear. He moved closer, settling beside her. Tell me about your husband. She was surprised by the gentleness. Thomas. He was steady, kind. He worked for the railroad building the future, he called it. A freight car rolled backward, crushed him. The railroad paid $50 compensation. Her voice caught. I answered the agency's letters because I was desperate and stupid. Not stupid, human. His voice was firm. These men are professionals at exploitation. She looked at him properly. Why are you really doing this? He was quiet then. Because when I found Wicampy's body, I promised I would stop this from happening if it cost everything. This $900, that was everything. But I would do it again, because keeping that promise is the only thing that lets me sleep without seeing her face. That is a heavy burden. Yes, but it is mine. He paused. When I saw you hanging, I did not see a stranger. I saw my sister. I saw every woman who has been powerless, waiting for someone to care enough to intervene. So I stopped it today. And I will keep stopping it until they kill me, or I die of old age. Clara felt tears prick her eyes, relief at not being alone. On impulse, she took his hand. His fingers were calloused and strong. He looked surprised, then his hand tightened around hers gently. Thank you, she said, for seeing us, for caring. You do not need to thank me for basic decency. But you are welcome. They sat as light faded, two people, connected by shared danger and simple human warmth. Night fell. Temperature dropped 20 degrees. Stars emerged with shocking clarity. Inside the shed, Ake checked his Winchester for the 10th time. Have you killed men before? Clara asked quietly. Yes. Many. Enough. I have never killed anyone who did not force the choice. But if it comes to protecting you, I will not hesitate. I know. I saw your face in that square. Death is easy. Living is harder. He stood. It is time. They executed the plan smoothly. Hale went first, complaining loudly about his leg. Guards followed reluctantly. Ake removed the loose board. Cool air flowed in. He helped Clara through first, then Hattie, then Paloma. They moved through back lots, using sheds for cover. Halfway out, Burton emerged with lantern and shotgun. Hold it. Where are you going? Ake spoke calmly. Medical emergency, early labor. Dr. Hale needs his clinic. Sheriff said stay in the shed. The sheriff is not a physician. He would prefer to deliver a living baby than explain to Cobb why property died. Ake used their own language against them. Burton struggled between duty and self-preservation. Finally, he lowered the shotgun. I do not want any part of this. Go." He walked away quickly. They reached the northern edge where Helen waited with a bulging satchel. "I got everything. Ledger pages detailing 23 women over 3 years, 12 deaths, transport routes, buyers, and letters Cobb's own handwriting discussing payment schedules." "You are amazing," Clara breathed. "I am furious, which is almost the same." They moved into open country following the dry creek bed. Clara's ankles throbbed, but she kept moving. After 40 minutes, they reached Dragonfly Creek. Henry stood with horses and wagon. "Thank God," he breathed. "We were delayed. Do you have everything?" "Horses, wagon, supplies, and these." Henry handed over letters. Even more damning. How they falsified death certificates, forge birth records, bribe officials. "August Brill, the clerk, does most paperwork under Cobb's direction." "Good." Ake helped the women into the wagon. "Helen, can you drive?" "I can drive anything with wheels and stubbornness." They rolled north under star-filled sky. Ake navigated by instinct, twice diverting around traps. At dawn, they stopped at a rock formation. They watered horses, ate jerky, tried to rest, while Ake kept watch. Clara climbed to where he sat, scanning the back trail with field glasses. "Do you see them?" "Not yet, but they are coming." He lowered the glasses. "You should rest." She settled beside him, shoulders almost touching. "Tell me about your sister when she was alive." Long silence. Then, she laughed easily. Everything was funny to her. She was learning beadwork from our grandmother, was going to make me moccasins with stars. She never finished them. I'm sorry she never got to. Yes, so am I. But I am grateful she existed at all. That is not nothing. No, that is everything. "Riders," Ake said suddenly. 4 of them, 5 miles back. Peace shattered. "What do we do?" "We run." He offered his hand. "Stay close to me, Clara. Whatever happens, stay close." "We will get each other through this." She corrected, squeezing his hand. He smiled briefly. "Yes, we will." They ran. The chase began in earnest as the sun climbed higher. Ake drove the wagon hard, Helen beside him with the reins, while he twisted in the seat to watch their pursuers with the field glasses. Behind them in the wagon bed, Clara held Paloma's hand. As the woman gripped her swollen belly with each jarring bump, Dr. Hale braced his bad leg medical bag clutched tight. Hattie prayed under her breath. 4 riders. Ake confirmed, voice tense. Sam Garrett leading. They are pushing hard, will close the distance within 2 hours at this pace. Can we go faster? Helen asked, her knuckles white on the reins. Not without breaking the horses. And we need them strong. Ake scanned the terrain ahead. There's see that line of darkness that is the freight line to Ash River. If we can reach it before they catch us. What good is a railroad? Henry called from his horse alongside the wagon. Trains run on schedule. We cannot count on one arriving when we need it. We make our own luck. Ake's jaw set with determination. Behind them, the riders closed steadily. Clara could see them now without the glasses, 4 dark figures against the pale prairie grass, kicking up dust weapons glinting in sunlight. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Beside her, Paloma suddenly gasped a sharp intake of breath that was not from the wagon's motion. What is it? Clara asked urgently. Paloma's face had gone pale, sweat beading her forehead despite the cool morning air. Contractions. Real ones. Not practice. Her hand found Clara's and squeezed with desperate strength. The baby is coming. No. The word escaped Clara as barely a whisper. No, not now. Not here. But babies did not consult convenience or safety. Dr. Hale moved immediately, his practiced hands checking Paloma's pulse, feeling her belly. His weathered face went grim. She is in active labor. contractions are 3 minutes apart. We have maybe 2 hours before she needs to deliver. We do not have 2 hours, Ake said flatly, not looking back but having heard every word. They will catch us in 90 minutes. The wagon hit a rut and Paloma cried out, the sound raw with pain. Hattie moved to support her, cradling her shoulders. Breathe, Paloma, like Dr. Hale taught us. In through your nose. But Paloma was beyond breathing exercises. Another contraction seized her, arching her back, pulling a scream from her throat that echoed across the empty grassland. Faster, Ake said to Helen. We need to reach that railroad. Helen snapped the reins. The horses surged forward, foam flecking their necks. The wagon bounced violently over the uneven ground. Each jolt made Paloma whimper, made Clara's teeth click together, made Dr. Hale curse under his breath as he tried to steady himself and his patient simultaneously. Clara found herself torn between looking back at their pursuers, close enough now that she could see Sam Garrett's sneering face, and forward toward the thin, dark line that represented their only hope. The Winchester rifle Ake had given her lay across her lap, heavy and foreign. She had fired a gun exactly 3 times in her life, all of them decades ago, when her father taught her to hunt rabbits. Now she might have to shoot at men. Clara. Ake's voice cut through her spiraling thoughts. He had twisted fully around in the seat, his dark eyes finding hers with laser focus. When we reach the tracks, I need you to do something for me. What? Take this. He pulled a polished metal mirror from his vest pocket, something he used for signaling over distance, she realized. When I tell you, you reflect sunlight at the train. Flash it 3 times, pause 3 times again. That is the railroad distress signal. The engineer will see it and know something is wrong. He used the mirror as an improvised heliograph, a trick learned from railroad linemen and scouts, to throw a stop signal toward the engine crew. What if there is no train? Then we fight with what we have. His voice was steady, absolute. But there will be a train. I heard the morning whistle from Copperhead Mine at dawn. That means they loaded ore overnight. The freight runs at mid-morning to Ash River. We are going to catch it. His certainty was either bravery or madness. Clara could not tell which, but she took the mirror with trembling hands. They crested a rise, and the railroad tracks appeared before them, twin ribbons of steel stretching north to south, across the prairie, gleaming in morning sun. And there, perhaps a mile to the south, Clara saw it, a plume of black smoke, a distant mechanical thunder. The freight train. There. Ake pointed. Helen, angle northeast. We need to reach the crossing point before the train passes. It became a race between 3 variables, the train approaching from the south, Sam's riders closing from behind, and their desperate wagon angling toward the intersection point. Mathematics written in dust and desperation. Paloma screamed again, her legs drawing up involuntarily as another contraction seized her. Dr. Hale tried to examine her, but the wagon's violent motion made it impossible. I cannot do anything until we stop moving. She needs to deliver soon, or both she and the child are at risk. We stop when we reach that train, Ake shouted back. The riders were 200 yards behind now. Clara could hear their shouts carried on the wind. A gunshot, cracked warning, or genuine attempt, she could not tell. But the bullet went wide. Henry returned fire, his rifle shot making Hattie jump. The train was closer, its whistle shrieking as it pulled a string of ore cars and boxcars, the whole massive assembly moving at perhaps 15 miles per hour as it labored upgrade. The engineer had not seen them yet, just another group of travelers crossing the prairie. Clara, the mirror, Ake commanded. She fumbled with the small mirror, nearly dropping it as the wagon lurched. Finding the sun, she angled it toward the approaching locomotive. Flash, flash, flash. Pause. Flash, flash, flash. The sunlight reflected in brilliant bursts. Again. Flash, 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 pause. Flash, flash, flash. The train's whistles shrieked again, longer this time, acknowledging signal received. Clara saw the locomotive begin to slow, steam-venting brakes, screaming against wheels. "He sees us," she cried. "Okarar! Hold on!" Ake grabbed the reins from Helen. They were racing parallel to the tracks, now the train to their right, slowing but still moving, Sam's riders closing from behind at full gallop. Ake angled the wagon directly toward the tracks, toward a flat crossing where ranch roads sometimes intersected the line. They hit the roadbed, and the wagon bounced hard, airborne, for a terrifying second. Clara's stomach dropped. Paloma screamed. They landed with a bone-jarring crash that sent Dr. Hales sprawling. The train was right there, 30 yards ahead and slowing. But Sam's riders were also there, 20 yards behind and closing. One of them fired again, and this time the bullet punched through the wagon's canvas cover, missing Hattie's head by inches. Ake made a decision that was either brilliant or suicidal. He drove the wagon directly onto the tracks, positioning it across the rails, then jumped down. "Everyone off now! Leave the wagon!" They tumbled out. Ake grabbed Paloma, lifting her bodily despite her pregnant weight, carrying her toward the slowing train. Dr. Hale followed, limping hard. Helen helped Hattie. Henry provided covering fire as Sam's riders pulled up short, not wanting to shoot toward the train. The locomotive passed them, and then the first ore cars, their iron wheels shrieking against brakes. An older man in coveralls leaned from the engineer's cab, Reeve Clara would learn later, a grandfather who knew Helen from teaching his kin. "What in blazes?" "We need help," Helen shouted. "These women are running from traffickers. Federal case, please." Reeve's eyes took in the pregnant women, the armed men pursuing the desperation. His face hardened with decision. Back 3 cars, the boxcar with the open door anew. They ran alongside the still-moving train. Clara's lungs burned. Beside her, Ake still carried Paloma, his breathing controlled despite the weight. The open boxcar approached a yawning darkness, its floor 4 feet above the ground. Henry reached it first, using his running momentum to pull himself up and inside. He turned, reaching down. Hattie now. Hattie jumped, caught, his hands was hauled aboard. Then Helen scrambling up with surprising grace. Dr. Hale tossed his medical bag inside, then pulled himself up with a grunt of pain, his bad leg protesting. Sam's riders abandoned caution, charging toward the train, firing. Bullets sparked off iron, whined through air. One struck the boxcar's door frame, sending splinters flying. "Clara, go." Ake thrust Paloma into her arms. The pregnant woman was barely conscious, groaning with another contraction. Clara stared at the moving train, at the open door, at the impossible distance. "I cannot." "You can." Ake's hands were on her waist, lifting, pushing. "Jump." She jumped. For a terrible second, she was airborne. Paloma's weight in her arms, the ground blurring beneath her. Then hands caught her, Henry and Helen, grabbing her shoulders, her arms pulling her and Paloma into the boxcar in a tangle of limbs and desperation. Clara rolled, coming up on her knees, turning back. Ake? He was running alongside the train, which was picking up speed now that the emergency stop was canceled. Sam Garrett and 2 others had dismounted, sprinting after him, closing the distance. Sam raised his pistol, aiming at Ake's back. Ake grabbed the boxcar's door frame with one hand, pulled himself up with strength, born of desperation. Sam's shot went wild as Ake's boots left the ground. He hung one-handed from the moving train legs, swinging, scrambling for purchase. Henry grabbed his arm, hauling. Ake pulled himself inside just as another bullet punched through the space where his legs had been. They collapsed together in the boxcar, gasping. The train was moving at a steady pace, now pulling away from Sam's riders, who stood frustrated beside the abandoned wagon on the tracks. "We made it," Hattie breathed. "Oh, merciful God, we made it." But Paloma screamed again, and they all remembered they were on a moving train with pursuers who could ride ahead and intercept, and a woman in active labor who needed to deliver immediately. Dr. Hale moved into position, all business now. "I need light, I need water, and I need someone to hold her steady while this train is moving." Clara knelt beside Paloma, taking her hand. "I am here. I have got you." Okay moved to the boxcar's open-door rifle, ready, watching the landscape blur past. The train was moving at full speed now, perhaps 20 miles per hour. He could see the road paralleling the tracks in the distance. See Sam and his men remounting, starting to ride north toward the next station, toward an ambush point. "They are not giving up," he said flatly. "Neither are we." Henry checked his rifle's ammunition. "How many bullets do you have?" 16. "I have 12. "I have 6, Helen said, producing her small Colt. Ake looked at Clara. "Can you shoot?" "I shot at rabbits 30 years ago." "Close enough. If they board this train, shoot at center mass and do not stop until they fall." Paloma's scream cut off discussion. Dr. Hale was examining her, his face showing professional concern. "The baby is crowning. This is happening now, whether we are ready or not." The boxcar smelled of ore dust and old wood. Sunlight slanted through gaps in the walls, striping everything with light and shadow. And in that moving, rattling, utterly inappropriate delivery room, Dr. Hale prepared to bring a child into the world, while armed men planned to board the train and kill them all. Clara found herself thinking with the kind of hysterical clarity that comes in extremis. This is insane. This is absolutely insane. And we are going to do it anyway. She met Ake's eyes across the boxcar. He was watching her, his expression fierce with protectiveness, and something deeper, something that made her heart clench despite the danger. "We survived this," he said. Not a question, a statement of intent. "Yes," Clara agreed. "We do." Outside, the prairie blurred past. The train thundered north toward Ash River. And somewhere ahead, Sam Garrett and his men were riding hard to catch them. The battle was far from over. The train had been moving at full speed for perhaps 15 minutes when Aka saw them riders approaching from the east, angling to intersect the tracks at a narrow point where the land rose in rocky hills and the rails threaded through a cut barely wider than the train itself. Sam had taken a shortcut, and now 4 men were racing to board the train in the one place where the terrain made it possible. "They are going to jump us at Devil's Cut," Ake said, his voice carrying over the train's noise. He knew this country, had traveled it many times. "The train will slow for the upgrade. They will board from both sides." Henry moved to the opposite door, checking sight lines. "How long?" 5 minutes, maybe less." In the center of the boxcar, Dr. Hale was entirely focused on Paloma, who lay on a makeshift bed of canvas tarps. "I can see the head," he said, his voice professionally calm despite everything. "Paloma, when I tell you to push, you push hard. Do not hold back." Paloma nodded, her face slick with sweat and tears. Hattie knelt beside her, holding her hand, whispering encouragement. Clara stayed close, ready to help, however needed, but her eyes kept going to Ake, by the door, silhouetted against bright daylight, rifle ready. The train began to slow as the grade steepened. The whistle shrieked Engineer Reeve, warning anyone ahead that he was coming through. But the warning also told Sam exactly where they were. "Here they come," Henry shouted. From the rocky hillside to the east, 2 riders charged parallel to the train, matching its reduced speed of perhaps 8 miles per hour. From the west, 2 more. They were coordinated, professional, committed. Sam Garrett was on the east side, his face twisted with rage and determination. He stood in his stirrups as his horse galloped alongside the train, reached out, grabbed the iron ladder welded to the boxcar's side. His momentum carried him off the horse and onto the ladder boots, scraping for purchase. On the west side, one of his men made a similar leap, catching the rear ladder. "They are boarding," Clara cried. Ake did not hesitate. He moved to the door, leaned out despite the danger, and fired down at Sam, clinging to the ladder below. The bullet sparked off iron inches from Sam's head. The deputy cursed and flattened against the train's side. Henry fired at the man on the west ladder, forcing him to duck. The train crested the rise and began to pick up speed again on the downslope. The two riders, who had not boarded yet, fell behind their horses, unable to keep pace. But Sam and his man were already on the train, already climbing toward the roof, where they could move freely. "Push, Paloma," Dr. Hale commanded. "Now hard as you can." Paloma pushed with a guttural cry that was part agony, part determination. Clara watched in horrified fascination as Dr. Hale's hands guided, caught, supported. Above them, boots thudded on the boxcar's roof. Sam and his companion had reached the top. "They are on the roof," Ake said. He looked at Henry. "You stay here. Protect them. I am going up." "You are insane," Henry said. "Probably." Ake checked his rifle. "But if they come down through that roof hatch, everyone dies. Better to take the fight to them." "I am coming with you," Henry decided. "Henry, my brother made me a coward for 3 years. I am done being a coward." Henry's face was set with determination. "Besides, someone needs to watch your back." Ake studied him for a second, then nodded. "Stay low. Stay smart. Do not die. We need you to testify." He moved to the ladder welded to the boxcar's exterior, the one Sam had just climbed. Hand over hand, boots finding rungs, he pulled himself up into the wind and noise and danger of the moving train's roof. The moment his head cleared the edge, a bullet whined past. Sam was 40 feet away. At the far end of the boxcar, crouched behind a ventilator. His companion, a grizzled man Clara had seen in Whiskey Bend, was working his way forward from the next car. The boxcar's roof was a battlefield. Ake rolled left, coming up behind a low chimney that vented the car's interior. Henry emerged beside him, immediately going prone as another shot sparked off metal. "2 of them, 2 of us," Henry said. "Fair odds." "Nothing about this is fair," Ake replied. But he was smiling grimly. The train swayed as it took a curve. Ake waited for the sway to steady, then leaned out and fired. His bullet took Sam's companion in the shoulder, spinning him around. The man fell, catching himself at the last second on a cable run, dangling for a terrifying moment before pulling himself back onto the roof. Sam fired 3 times, rapid forcing Ake back into cover. The bullets sang off the chimney with bell-like tones. "We cannot stay pinned," Henry said. "He will work around us. Then we move first." Ake checked the roof ahead. There was a gap of about 6 feet between their boxcar and the next the coupling space where cars connected empty air above the rattling machinery. "Can you jump that?" "Can I? Are you insane? We established that already. Can you jump it?" Henry looked at the gap at the ground, blurring past beneath at the death waiting if he missed. "Yes, probably. Maybe. Good enough." Ake moved fast, sprinting across the swaying roof boots, pounding iron. Sam saw him coming and stood to take careful aim. But Ake was not stopping. He ran full out toward the gap, planted his foot on the very edge of the roof, and leaped. For a terrible second, he was airborne above the coupling machinery, above certain death. Then his boots hit the next car's roof, and he rolled, coming up with his rifle, already tracking Sam. Sam fired, but was thrown off by Ake's sudden appearance from an unexpected angle. His shot went high. Aki's did not. The bullet took Sam in the thigh, a precise, non-lethal shot that nonetheless sent him down hard, his leg collapsing. His pistol skittered across the roof, caught the edge, fell to the ground below. Henry made the jump, landed hard, stumbled, caught himself. Together, they advanced on Sam, who sat clutching his bleeding leg, his face white with shock and pain. "You shot me," he said stupidly. "You actually shot me." "You tried to kill pregnant women?" Ake replied, his voice flat. "Consider yourself lucky I did not aim higher." The grizzled companion saw the tide turn and made a decision. He jumped from the moving train, hitting the ground and rolling down an embankment, choosing injury over capture. Below, through the boxcar's roof hatch, Clara heard the fight and its sudden silence with equal terror. Then Aki's voice called down, "It is over. We are clear." And in that moment of relative safety, with Sam Garrett bleeding on the roof, and the train carrying them away from danger, Dr. Hale said the words that changed everything. "The baby is here. It is a girl." The thin, outraged wail of a newborn filled the boxcar, cutting through the train's noise, announcing life in the face of all the death that had surrounded them. Clara found tears streaming down her face. Beside her, Hattie sobbed openly. Paloma, exhausted beyond words, reached for her daughter with shaking hands. Dr. Hale cut and tied the cord, wrapped the infant in cloth torn from petticoats, placed her in Paloma's arms. "She is perfect," he said, his weathered voice rough with emotion. "Healthy and strong and absolutely perfect." Ake dropped through the roof hatch landing cat-like, immediately checking that everyone was truly safe. His eyes found Clara's, and the relief in them was profound. She moved to him without thinking, wrapped her arms around him, felt his arms come around her in return, careful of her belly, but holding tight. They stood like that a moment, stolen from chaos, two people recognizing that they had survived something that should have killed them. "Thank you," she whispered against his shoulder. "We did it together," he replied. Above them, Henry was binding Sam's leg with rough efficiency, making sure the deputy did not bleed out before they reached Ash River. "This is going to hurt," he told his brother's man without sympathy, "and you deserve every second of it." The train thundered north through the afternoon. Engineer Reeve, learning what had happened, sent word back through the crew that he was taking them straight to Ash River and would personally testify to everything he had witnessed. In the boxcar, Paloma named her daughter Clara Helen, taking names from the women who had saved her. The infant slept swaddled tight, oblivious to the miracle of her own existence. And Clara, sitting beside Ake as the miles rolled past, realized something that should have terrified her, but instead felt utterly right. She was falling in love with this man, this stranger who had become essential, who had kept his promise to his dead sister by saving them all. It was too soon, too complicated, too impossible. But on a day when they had survived, an auction escaped a town, outrun riders fought on a moving train, and delivered a baby during battle, impossible seemed like just another word for possible with effort. She leaned her head against Ake's shoulder. He did not pull away. And together, they watched the prairie roll past, carrying them toward justice, toward safety, toward whatever future they would build from the ashes of this terrible, beautiful, impossible day. They reached Ash River as the sun touched the western horizon, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose. The town was larger than Whiskey Bend, perhaps 200 souls built, where the Ash River calmed enough for a ferry crossing. It had a courthouse that served as the circuit judge's temporary chambers, a telegraph office, a federal marshal's station. And waiting at the train platform when they arrived, alerted by Engineer Reeves' urgent telegraph sent from a water stop, was Marshal Elias Grant with 4 deputies. Grant was a hard man in his 50s with steel-gray hair and eyes that had seen every variety of human evil and remained unimpressed. He listened to their story, Helen presenting the ledger pages and letters, Henry providing corroborating testimony, Dr. Hale giving medical evidence of the women's condition, Ake stating facts with soldier-like precision. When they finished, Grant's face was carved from stone. "This is the largest trafficking case I have seen in 20 years of federal service. If half of what you are telling me is true, we are talking about violations of territorial law, federal law, and basic human decency on a scale that demands swift action." "It is all true," Clara said quietly, speaking for the first time. She held Paloma's infant while the exhausted mother rested. "Every word. And there are more women out there still trapped in this system. The ledger shows names, dates, locations. You can find them if you move quickly." Grant nodded slowly. "I will ride to Whiskey Bend tonight with every man I can muster. Sheriff Pike Copper, Jim Malloy, Fitzgerald Cobb, all of them will be arrested and brought to trial before Judge Avery." He looked at each of them in turn. "You did something extraordinary today. You should be proud. We survived. Ike said simply. That is enough. They were given rooms at the boarding house, clean beds, hot water food that was not jerky and hardtack. Clara sank into a real bed for the first time in days and slept dreamlessly. She woke to find Ake sitting by her window, watching the sunrise. "You should sleep," she said softly. I did. 3 hours. More than usual. He turned to look at her, his profile edged in morning light. Helen received a telegraph this morning from the territorial capital. Judge Avery is arriving today 2 days early. He received her original telegram after all it went through before Pike could cut the lines. He has been coordinating with Marshal Grant. We did not know it, but help was coming all along. Clara sat up processing this. So we ran, fought, nearly died. And help was already on the way. Yes. But if we had waited, if we had trusted that help would arrive, we would have been ambushed and killed on the road out of Whiskey Bend. We survived because we acted. He stood moved to sit on the edge of her bed, close enough that she could see the fatigue in his eyes and the tension he still carried. I am glad we ran. I am glad we fought. Because now we are here alive, and everyone who hurt you will face justice. Not just me, all of us. She reached out, took his hand. You kept your promise to your sister. Yes, though I think she would tell me I was reckless and foolish. She would be right, but she would also be proud. They sat in comfortable silence as the sun climbed higher. Finally, Ike spoke again, his voice low and uncertain, in a way she had never heard from him. When this is over, when the trials are finished and you are truly free, I want to ask you something. But not now. Not while you are still dependent on me for protection. It would not be fair. Clara felt her heart beat faster. What will you ask? Whether you would consider building a life with me. Not immediately, not rushing anything. But someday, if you wanted. He looked down at their joined hands. I know it is complicated. You are carrying your husband's child. You are grieving. We have known each other for days, not months or years. But I need you to know that these days have mattered to me. You matter to me. And if there is any chance you might feel the same, I do. The words came out before she could second-guess them. Feel the same, I mean. It is insane and too fast and completely inappropriate by every social standard I was raised with. But yes. When this is over, ask me that question. And my answer will be yes. He looked up at her, surprise and hope warring in his dark eyes. You are certain. I have never been more certain of anything. She squeezed his hand. You saved my life. But more than that, you saw me as a person worth saving when I was hanging upside down like livestock. You kept fighting even when the odds were impossible. You made me believe I could survive this. So yes, Ake, ask me your question when the time is right. I already know my answer. He raised her hand to his lips, pressed a kiss to her knuckles that was gentle and reverent and full of promise. Then I will ask. Soon. The trials took 3 weeks. Judge Marcus Avery presided with the gravity of a man who understood he was setting precedent that would echo across territories. The courtroom was packed every day. Survivors, witnesses, curious townspeople drawn by the sensational nature of the case. Clara testified for 2 hours, describing everything from the false promises of the Hearth and Home Agency to the auction, to the escape, to the battle on the train. Hattie and Paloma corroborated every detail. Helen presented the ledger pages with a schoolteacher's precise analysis, explaining the roots, the payments, the cold arithmetic of human trafficking. Henry Pike gave the most damaging testimony against his own brother, producing letters and documents that showed the full scope of the conspiracy. His voice shook, but never stopped. Dr. Hale provided medical testimony about the women's condition, the evidence of systematic abuse, the danger they had been in. And Ake described finding his sister's body, tracking the network that had killed her, arriving at Whiskey Bend, with the specific intent of disrupting their operation. His testimony was calm, factual, devastating. August Brill. The clerk broke entirely under questioning, admitting to forging death certificates and birth records on Cobb's orders. He produced the fake territorial seal he had used, demonstrated how easy it was to create official-looking documents. But the revelation that shocked the courtroom came from Bertha Pike. The sheriff's wife was arrested as an accomplice based on the telegraph records Helen had discovered. But when questioned, she revealed something unexpected. She had been sending coded warnings within the telegrams her husband forced her to transmit. I did not know what the messages meant at first. She testified, tears streaming down her face. Roland told me they were business communications. But I am not stupid. I learned Morse code from my father. I recognized patterns. When I understood what he was doing, I was terrified. He said if I refused to send messages, I would disappear like the others. That my daughters would disappear. She produced a notebook she had kept hidden, showing how she had embedded warnings in supposedly routine messages, every third word of certain paragraphs, when read in sequence spelled out help or trafficking or Cobb. Helen stood up in the courtroom, her face pale with sudden understanding. I saw these. When you sent my telegram that night, you were shaking, terrified, and you added words while you were tapping the message. I thought you were sabotaging it or adding routing codes. But you were trying to help. You were embedding warnings even then. Yes, Bertha whispered. I added the word urgent 3 times in Morse shorthand, and I embedded Cobb and trafficking in the message routing. I did not know if it would work, but I had to try. Anyone monitoring telegrams, anyone paying attention, they might see the patterns. It was the only way I knew to get someone's attention. Helen's eyes filled with tears. You were trying to save us, even while your husband was trying to kill us. I could not do more. I was too afraid, but I could do that much. Judge Avery studied her for a long moment. You were complicit in these crimes through your transmission of messages. But you were also a victim of intimidation and coercion, and you attempted to alert authorities through the only means available to you. His gavel fell. 5 years, a suspended sentence under surety and supervision with mandatory cooperation as a witness. You will testify in every related case, and you will work with federal authorities to identify other potential victims and recover missing children. Bertha collapsed in relief. The verdicts came swift and final. Fitzgerald Cobb, life imprisonment at hard labor. Sheriff Roland Pike, 25 years. Copper Jim Malloy, 30 years. The Hearth and Home Agency operators in Kansas City were tried separately and received similar sentences. The network was broken. 38 women were identified as victims over 5 years. 19 children were located with their buyers, some were reunited with mothers who had been told they died, others were placed in new homes when their mothers could not be found. 14 women were confirmed dead, including Wicanpe. Their names were recorded, their graves marked, their families notified. It was not perfect justice. Too many had died. Too many children would never know their birth mothers. Too many families had been shattered. But it was justice nonetheless, hard-won and absolutely certain. After the trials, Henry Pike used his brother's confiscated property to establish a cooperative farm near Ash River, 200 acres, with a creek and good soil. He offered partnership to everyone who wanted it, shared work, shared profits, a community built on trust. Ake and Clara accepted. So did Hattie, whose husband came from Kansas, grateful beyond words. Paloma stayed with her daughter, Clara Helen. Dr. Hale opened a small practice. Helen returned to teaching. They built cabins, plowed fields, planted crops. Hard work but honest work done by choice. Ake and Clara built their cabin near the creek in a cottonwood grove. They worked side by side through the summer, him teaching her to track and hunt her, teaching him to read more fluently. They learned each other slowly through shared labor and quiet evenings. In October, Clara gave birth to a son. She named him Thomas after his father. Aka held the boy with reverent care, this child, who was not his by blood, but whom he would raise as his own. He will know who his father was. Clara said firmly, I will tell him stories about Thomas, but he will also know you. Know that you saved his life before he was born. That matters, Ake agreed. Choice matters. 6 months after the trial, they were married by a traveling preacher, a simple ceremony attended by their community. When asked if they would honor each other, they answered simultaneously, we will. Not I do, as a single moment, but we will, as a continued choice. They kissed, and their community cheered, and Ake felt something unclench in his chest. Not forgiveness, he would never forgive himself for failing Wikampi, but perhaps peace. Perhaps the knowledge that her death had meant something, had driven him to save others, had led him to this moment. 2 years after the auction at Whiskey Bend, they attended a memorial service. The town had been renamed Freedom Bend. The old gallows was gone, replaced by a young cottonwood tree. 14 grave markers bore the names of women who had died, including Wikampi. Paloma stood with her daughter, now a toddler. Hattie held her newborn son. Helen stood with Dr. Hale. Henry brought flowers from his garden. Marshall Grant attended. Judge Avery spoke about justice and the ongoing work to dismantle trafficking networks. Ake stood before Wikampi's marker with Clara beside him. I could not save you, he said quietly, but I saved others because of you. Your death was not meaningless. It woke me up. It made me fight. And in fighting, I found... His voice broke. He looked at Clara and Thomas sleeping in her arms at their community. I found a reason to live beyond vengeance. I found family. I found home. She would be proud, Clara said. I hope so. Later, as they prepared to leave, a woman approached, middle-aged, well-dressed, her eyes searching. Excuse me. My name is Margaret Whitfield. I have been searching for my daughter Mary, who disappeared 3 years ago after answering an agency advertisement. Your testimony mentioned a woman matching her description rescued from a Colorado mining camp. I was hoping... Helen stepped forward. Mary Whitfield. I have her address. She is in Denver working as a seamstress. She is alive and healing. Margaret's face crumpled with relief and joy. Thank you, all of you, for fighting, for refusing to let them hide what they did. You gave me back my daughter. After she left, Clara turned to Ake. How many more families out there still searching? Many, but fewer than there would have been if we had stayed silent. He took her hand. That is why we did this, for moments like that. For mothers who get daughters back. For children who will never be stolen. They went home to their farm, their family, their impossible victory. 5 years after the auction, Clara stood in her kitchen watching morning sun paint the valley gold. Thomas was 7 now, helping Ake with horses. Their daughter Eleanor slept in her crib. Life was good. That evening, she and Ake walked to the creek where they had first built their life together. Thomas splashed in the shallows. Eleanor dozed in Ake's arms. Do you ever wonder how different things would be if you had not ridden into that square? Clara asked. Every day. If I had been late or if my courage had failed. So many small choices that led here. I am glad you made them. So am I. He pulled her close. I came to that town expecting to die. To trade my life because I thought it was all I had left to give. But I was wrong. What did you have left? The possibility of this. A view of family, of waking up each day and choosing to build instead of destroy. You saved me, Clara, just as much as I saved you. We saved each other. Yes. They stood together as light faded and stars emerged in the vast western sky. Behind them, their cabin glowed with lamplight. Around them, the land they had built stretched fertile and full of promise. In Freedom Bend, the young cottonwood grew tall and strong, its roots deep in soil that had seen terrible things, but now represented remembrance and hope. And in their cabin by the creek, a family forged from survival and choice, gathered for dinner, holding hands, giving thanks not to distant deities, but to each other, for the simple gift of another day lived in freedom and love. It was enough. It was everything.